Welcome to another video by your friend Matthew Sherling. Today I'm going to be reading from Lydia Davis's Break It Down, which, looking at the front of the book, I just realized was published in 1986, which is the year I was born, and which is earlier than I thought this book was published. I don't know why I thought this book was published after that, in the 90s or even early 2000s, but I was completely mistaken. And this is the first story in the book, and this story is called Story. I get home from work and there is a message from him that he is not coming, that he is busy. He will call again. I wait to hear from him. Then at 9 o'clock I go to where he lives, find his car, but he's not home. I knock at his apartment door and then at all the garage doors, not knowing which garage door is his. No answer. I write a note, read it over, write a new note, and stick it in his door. At home I am restless, and all I can do, though I have a lot to do, since I'm going on a trip in the morning, is play the piano. I call again at 10:45 and he's home. He has been to the movies with his old girlfriend, and she's still there. He says he'll call back. I wait. Finally, I sit down and write in my notebook that when he calls me, either he will then come to me, or he will not, and I will be angry, and so I will have either him or my anger, and this might be all right, since anger is always a great comfort, as I found with my husband. And then I go on to write in the third person and the past tense that clearly she always needed to have a love, even if it was a complicated love. He calls back before I have time to finish writing all this down. When he calls, it is a little after 11:30. We argue until nearly 12. Everything he says is a contradiction. For example, he says he did not want to see me because he wanted to work, and even more because he wanted to be alone. But he has not worked, and he has not been alone. There's no way I can get him to reconcile any of his contradictions. And when this conversation begins to sound too much like many I had with my husband, I say goodbye and hang up. I finish writing down what I started to write down, even though by now it no longer seems true that anger is any great comfort. I call him back 5 minutes later to tell him that I am sorry about all this arguing and that I love him, but there is no answer. I call again 5 minutes later, thinking he might have walked out to his garage and walked back, but again there is no answer. I think of driving to where he lives again and looking for his garage to see if he is in there working, because he keeps his desk there and his books, and that is where he goes to read and write. I am in my nightgown. It is after 12, and I have to leave the next morning at 5. Even so, I get dressed and drive the mile or so to his place. I am afraid that when I get there I will see other cars by his house that I did not see earlier, and that one of them will belong to his old girlfriend. When I drive down the driveway, I see 2 cars that weren't there before, and one of them is parked as close as possible to his door, and I think that she is there. I walk around the small building to the back where his apartment is, and I look in the window. The light is on, but I can't see anything clearly because of the half-closed Venetian blinds and the steam on the glass. But things inside the room are not the same as they were earlier in the evening, and before there was no steam. I open the outer screen door and knock. I wait. No answer. I let the screen door fall shut, and I walk away to check the row of garages. Now the door opens behind me as I am walking away, and he comes out. I can't see him very well because it is dark in the narrow lane beside his house, and he is wearing dark clothes, and whatever light there is behind him. He comes to me and puts his arms around me without speaking, and I think he is not speaking, not because he is feeling so much, but because he is preparing what he will say. He lets go of me and walks around me and ahead of me out to where the cars are parked by the garage doors. As we walk out there, he says, "Look," and my name, and I am waiting for him to say that she is here, and also that it's all over between us. But he doesn't, and I have the feeling he did intend to say something like that, at least say that she was here, and that he then thought better of it for some reason. Instead, he says that everything that went wrong tonight was his fault, and he's sorry. He stands with his back against the garage door and his face in the light, and I stand in front of him with my back to the light. At one point, he hugs me so suddenly that the fire of my cigarette crumbles against the garage door behind him. I know why we're out here and not in his room, but I don't ask him until everything is all right between us. Then he says, "She wasn't here when I called you. She came back later." He says the only reason she is there is that something is troubling her, and he is the only one she can talk to about it. Then he says, "You don't understand, do you?" I try to figure it out. So they went to the movies and then came back to his place, and then I called, and then she left, and he called back, and we argued, and then I called back twice, but he had gone out to get a beer, he says. And then I drove over, and in the meantime, he had returned from buying beer, and she had also come back, and she was in his room, so we talked by the garage doors. But what is the truth? Could he and she both really have come back in that short interval between my last phone call and my arrival at his place? Or is the truth really that during his call to me, she waited outside or in his garage or in her car, and that he then brought her in again, and that when the phone rang with my second and third calls, he let it ring without answering because he was fed up with me and with arguing? Or is the truth that she did leave and did come back later, but that he remained and let the phone ring without answering? Or did he perhaps bring her in and then go out for the beer while she waited there and listened to the phone ring? The last is the least likely. I don't believe, anyway, that there was any trip out for beer. The fact that he does not tell me the truth all the time makes me not sure of his truth at certain times, and then I work to figure out for myself if what he is telling me is the truth or not, and sometimes I can figure out that it's not the truth, and sometimes I don't know and never know, and sometimes just because he says it to me over and over again, I am convinced it is the truth because I don't believe he would repeat a lie so often. Maybe the truth does not matter, but I want to know it, if only so that I can come to some conclusions about such questions as whether he is angry at me or not. If he is, then how angry? Whether he still loves her or not. If he does, then how much? Whether he loves me or not, how much? How capable he is of deceiving me in the act, and after the act, in the telling.